Hello and welcome to Ice Dice. My name's Evan and this is Mike.
Hello!
And today we're going to be taking a look at Discoveries. Discoveries is a game from Ludonaut Games by Cedric Chabosit or Chabosset, I'm not sure how you say it. 2 to 4 players, 60 minutes. The theme is that it's the Lewis and Clark expedition, but it's a dice placement game. I do think that it's going to be difficult to talk about this game without also talking about Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark is from the same publisher, designer, and artist and has the same theme. The way Lewis and Clark works is that it's a deck building game in that you start out with a basic set of cards, you buy more cards, you have to play your cards and then use things to power those cards. There's a worker placement element, you have these boats that the more loaded they are with resources, the slower they go, but the main gist of it is that it's a race game. This game has the same theme but works much differently. This is a dice placement game. What you see out here in the middle is this main board is where when you spend dice, some dice will go on one side of the river and some dice will go on the other depending on what die face they were when you spent them. Over here on the right you have these journeys that you're trying to complete. That's a queue that's lined up. And on the left is some Indian tribes that you can recruit to help you out. The way you play is everybody has their own player board and you roll all your dice and put them in your supply. One of the key things about this game is that you can only spend one die face type per turn. For example, you could spend as many footprints as you have, but then you couldn't spend any other kind of dice. But the main thing you're trying to do is complete these journeys. At the beginning of the game, you'll draft one journey that is yours to complete. No one else can complete it. The main way you complete them is here at the bottom of the board are some of your dice actions. On the left here, you see we have a 2-river action. In the middle, there's a 3-river action. And on the right, there's a 2-mountain action. The way it works is that you're going to be setting up these actions by placing the symbol that's shown, either a horseshoe, footprints, or 3 of any kind. That's what that's what the question mark shows. And then you will actually trigger that action when you journal about it. Since you can only play one die face type per turn, most of these are going to take you 2 turns to do. 1 to place the horseshoe and 1 to place the journal to actually execute it. However, there's not many 2-river journeys, so you probably are going to take 3 turns or more to set up these actions. 1 to place a horseshoe on this one, 1 to place the footprints on this one, and then a turn to place your journals to execute both those at the same time. Let's take a closer look at these journeys. As you can see, there are symbols for rivers and mountains, and there's forks, so you will get to choose which way you want to go, but you have to go from bottom up. You also have the ability, once you complete the one that's in front of you, to, if there's one in the queue that you could complete that one also to get 2 journeys done in one action. It's going to be difficult to complete most journeys with just these basic actions that are on your player board. What you can do is you can recruit Indian tribes. That's what these actions here are. There's 2 different types because there are 2 different types of Indian tribes. You have your friendly tribes, which take 1 negotiate die face to acquire, and then you have wary tribes, which will take you 2 negotiate faces to acquire. Besides the fact that they will give you additional ways to journey, some of them have special powers. It might be change any die to a journal phase or change any horseshoe to any other phase. In addition, whenever you recruit an Indian tribe, you also get a gray die to add to your dice pool. You only start out with 5, so I do recommend at the beginning of the game, people try to get those Indian tribes early, both to get the additional places to play their dice and additional powers, but also to get those gray dice. There's a couple other actions on the board that I'm not going to go into too much detail on. This one is that if you don't like the personal journey you have here in front of you, you can swap it for one of the queue. And this one is spend a die to change 2 other dice to another dice face, but those 2 dice face have to be matching. What you're trying to do is earn points, and the main way you earn points is by completing those journeys. Some of them have straight up points on them, and other ones have these animal symbols. There is a chart that you look at, and at the end of the game, for each set of different animals, you will earn this number of points. The other way you earn points is by having the most tribe symbols. Every tribe you recruit will have some 1 to 3 tribe symbols on it. In addition, some of these journeys have tribe symbols on them in addition to their points or animal symbols. Well, that doesn't cover all the rules, but it should give you a fair idea of how it's played. But you've played this game a few times now, and what are your impressions of it?
Well, when the dice placement as a worker placement mechanic came into popularity a while ago, I was a big fan of it, and now that it's gone a while now, it's 7 years since I think Kingsburg came about. So now it's a regular part of gaming, and now I'm looking for stuff in the gaming mechanic where it's enhanced. And this thing does an enhancement where this is a unique aspect I think of this game, where when you roll the dice and you're only able to play one type of face-up aspect of the dice at a time, which is, I think, is a pretty new thing.
Yeah, I think you're right, because what I have seen in games before is what they do is you can play, you have to play a pair of dice here, or you have to play a set or a sequence of dice here, but I don't know that I've seen one where it's like you can play as many as you want as long as they're the same die face. So you're right, that is a fairly new thing.
Also, with the dice placement mechanic, you're looking for things that enhance your basic dice roll, and this has that in using the Native American cards to both mitigate what you're rolling or change what you're rolling, or help you with the journeys by using different combinations of dice winning journeys. And as Evan noted, every time you get pick up a Native American card, you also get a great dice. So you get more dice and you get more things to do with the dice, which is great.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things I do is with new players is I recommend they try to get at least a couple of these tribes early, because it gives them more place to place their dice or a special power, and it gets those great dice. I think it's important to do that early in the game.
I agree. The little bit downside is once you've enhanced your engine on using these cards, then you basically build up the point where you can do a lot of things during your turn, and that adds for a little bit of downside for the other players, because it takes you a while to plan your super awesome turn where you're going to complete both your card up here and one of these cards, which you can do if you have a lot of enhanced abilities. So there's going to be a bit of downtime for the other players while you're doing your super duper planning, and you're getting two journeys completed at one time.
Yeah, you're right. That is one of the things about this game, is the pacing is a little odd, because some of your turns are just going to take a couple seconds, and others of your turns are going to take a minute or two. Because what it is that you'll get a bunch of dice back, and then to complete these journeys, and like he says, you do want to do 2 of them at once if you can. That takes a little bit of planning. You kind of have to, okay, I rolled all my dice, no, I've got this, let's see, I need 2 rivers there, and if I put this here, no, that doesn't work, I have to move this here. So you kind of have to figure out where you're going to spend your dice, and that might take you a minute or two. However, on subsequent turns, once you've done that, then your turns are only a couple seconds. Okay, I know this is next. Okay, I know I'm going to do my journey. They just go quickly. And so it makes the pacing a little bit odd in that sometimes you go quick and sometimes you slow down. And it's okay, though. Yeah,
the pacing would be bad if it was a long game, but this is one of those great games where the weight of the game is the same as the length of the game. The length of the game doesn't ever feel too long, which is great. And I would expect no less from these guys that did Lewis and Clark, where that thing was the depth of the game also matched the weight of the game, and it was obviously play tested well, and they did a fine job as well with this one.
Well, I think that actually I've had the reverse, where people feel like, what, it's over? It's getting over? They feel like it should go a little bit longer. And you could, because, well, except in a 4-player game. The way the game ends is that these journey cards, once someone can't fill their personal journey card, that marks the end of the last round, and everyone will get one more turn. This deck is 55 cards, but it's used to supply both those journey cards and these tribe cards. So no matter which one you're doing and taking those cards out of there, you're speeding the end of the game. So there's 55 of them. You take 5 out in a 4-player game, so you can't really expand a 4-player game. But if you're playing a 2 or 3-player game, you could leave more of them in. I don't remember how many cards are left in for each of those. But but that's been my experience, is that people just feel like, ooh, wow, the ending is coming already? But it might be just because they're enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I agree, because you get your engine perfected, And then once your engine's perfected, you're chewing through these journeys, and that's the fun. And then once you're chewing through these journeys real good, then the game's over, and they go, oh crud, the game's over. I was just getting cooking. But that's not a downside or an upside. That's just an observation. And obviously, the planning of the game is when to stop building your engine and when to start running your engine.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there is a little bit of both, but I am big on, hey, I want Indian tribes early because I try to hold on to those gray dice as long as I can. Let's see. Well, one thing about this game is that, truthfully, it's pretty abstract. You don't really feel like you're going on a journey. In Lewis and Clark, because it was a race game of trying to get your boat up that river and over those mountains and down the other side, it really kind of did feel like, hey, I'm on this journey, and oh, my boat's too heavy, it's slowing down, I gotta spend some of this stuff so I don't have it. This is pretty abstract. It more feels like I'm spending symbols than I am actually going on a journey. But, I'm okay with that in this game.
Yeah, I'm okay too. On the downside, where was somebody's planning a really thing, planning a long journey with it that involves more than one card. I like to hum myself the theme song from the Wiz 1980 movie, Ease on Down the Road, because that's essentially what you're doing, is trying to go far down the road. And it's fun because it was Michael Jackson before he had a nose job.
One thing about this game is, as far as player interaction goes, is there's really not a lot. But one thing I think I left out of my rules explanation is how you get your dice back. Because what's going to happen is some of the dice get spent out to the center, and you're going to be running low on dice. The way you get them back is that you can either take them from all dice from one side of the river, regardless of whether they're your dice, gray dice, or some other player's dice, or you can take back all of your color no matter where they are. And so there is some interaction in that, as you do kind of look to go, well, I'm only taking one of his and he's got a full boatload of dice. He's not going to want to spend a turn taking his dice back, so I might get to use his before he tries to grab it back. And another part is that every time you take one of these tribe cards, you get a gray die. Well, eventually the pool is going to run out, and you're going to take one of these gray die, or take one of these tribes and need a gray die. What happens is you look at all the other players, and whoever has the most gray dice, they have to give you one of theirs. And that actually, I do find, comes into play where you look and say, well, I think he's doing better than him. So I don't know, is that truly player interaction? Well, it does affect them, but it's kind of soft interaction, I guess.
I agree with the interaction in this game, and noted that it's a dice placement planning game, so anything that a player can do to interrupt those plans, and in fact taking away the dice that they were going to use, that's obviously changing their plans, so they have to go to plan B. So the player interaction is only warranted or only enhanced by the use of the Native American cards.
Yeah. Now, I also do think that this game is pretty replayable. Because the journeys are going to be different every time. The tribes that come out are going to be different every time. It's not going to be the same experience every time you play. You really have to roll with the punches and see what comes out, and what you have works with what.
Yeah, that's right. It's got that almost King of Tokyo thing where my dice with my cards or my enhancements, my dice allow me to do this. So I need to roll with the punches, as you note, and do this. I can do this better than the other person, so I'm going to do this now. And maybe that allows me to complete more journeys, or maybe allows me to just mess with other players. But this is something that I do well.
So how would you rate this game?
I would rate it as I like it. It has a bit of downside in where the players are, when they're forming their great elaborate plans. The other players have nothing to do. But given that it's got solid mechanic, I like the worker placement planning aspect of it, so I like it.
When we did our Board Game Geek games ranked 71 through 80, I gave Lewis and Clark a love it. But I'm only going to give this a like it, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is that I think that the randomness is greater in this game. I think that in Lewis and Clark, the main source of randomness was which cards came out that you could buy. In this, you not only have the dice, which are inherently random, you also have which cards come up and which on the journey side and which cards come up on the tribe side. So that's probably the reason that's keeping me from a love it. The other part is that, boy, I've taught this game a few times. It's even some experienced gamers struggle with the rules. It's not that they're complex, it's that they're not really all that intuitive. So I played a game, I think it was yesterday, where it was with 3 experienced gamers, and I really had to spend a lot of time going, no, you can only spend 1 die phase. No, you can't break up the things. No, you have to go from top to bottom. Where I really had to pay attention to what everybody's doing, and just the individual rules, everybody would forget like 1 or 2 of them. And so just like, it's not intuitive. I do think for those people that tough it out through their first game, I think that they'll like it. So between the randomness and the fact that it's not quite as intuitive as Lewis and Clark, that leaves me to like it. I'll play it a few more times and maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll stay there. I'm not sure. But I do want to point out one last thing, in that one of the things that gives why I give Lewis and Clark a love it is that the combination of deck building and using the backside of the cards to power your cards, and the fact that you really want to plan out your whole turn ahead of time and gives it a programming element, and you have a worker placement thing, and you have a river race that you're going up and you have to cross things. I think that combination of things was a unique gaming experience, and so I give it a love it. Now this game, the theme is the same, the publisher is the same, the designer is the same, and the artist is the same, but it's mechanically is completely different from Lewis and Clark, and yet still has a unique gameplay feel. So even if I didn't like this one quite as much as I did Lewis and Clark, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this designer, but it's because anybody that can just do mechanically such a big shift and still come up with something that's unique and interesting, well, that's somebody to keep your eye on.
Yeah, the designer and the artist are the same, and this is a straight up pretty game. It looks nice. While you're playing it, you're engrossed with the graphic design as well as the artistry. Yeah, that's top notch.
Okay, well that's it for this edition where we reviewed Discoveries. Join us again next time. See ya.
Bye.